Well, meanwhile, while the Republicans battle it out over 2024, Joe Biden continues to be as radical as it is possible to be. Remember that time where he proposed that he was a moderate? And he stayed silent on certain topics. He had Elizabeth Warren, if you recall, during the 2020 primaries, suggesting to a 9-year-old that transing the kids was good. You remember that? Well, now Joe Biden is saying the same exact sort of stuff. It is amazing how radical he has gone on the social issues. And this does open a wide door for Republicans if they wish to reach out to blue-collar voters who, again, are traditionally very unwoke and don't like a lot of the social values that are promoted by the people who are at the tippity top of the social strata in New York and San Francisco. So here is Joe Biden. This is an insane thing to say. It's one of the more insane things Joe Biden has ever said, which is saying a lot because he said a lot of insane stuff. So Joe Biden was trying to attack Ron DeSantis in an interview with The Daily Show, one of our great news sources, of course. And he talked about how it was, I quote, I kid you not, sinful to prevent the transing of the kids.
What's going on in Florida is, as my mother would say, close to sinful. I mean, it's just terrible what they're doing. It's not like, a kid wakes up one morning and says, I decided I want to become a man, or I want to become a woman, or I want to change. I mean, what are they thinking about here? They're human beings. They love, they have feelings, they have inclinations that are, it just, to me, is, I don't know, it's cruel. And the way we do it is we make sure we pass legislation like we passed on same-sex marriage. You mess with that, you're breaking the law, and you're going to be held accountable.
So if you stop a doctor from mutilating a child in the state of Florida, says Joe Biden, then you will be held accountable. It's close to sinful to prevent children from being hormonally or surgically mutilated. Sinful. It's a sin. Now, normally, those of us who actually take things like sin seriously, like actual religious human beings who believe that there are things that you can do that are a sin against God or a sin against your fellow man, sin has an actual meaning. Sin is generally contrasted with holiness. So I guess the idea is that it is holy to trans the children. It is incredibly holy to make sure that a 5-year-old confused about gender because mommy and daddy are engaging in Munchausen syndrome by proxy. It is important to make sure that that 5-year-old can get hormonally sterilized. And then presumably, if they are lucky as they go on, surgically mutilated. That would be holy. Preventing such a thing would be sinful, according to Joe Biden. And this guy is the moderate. By the way, it is perfectly obvious, and it's becoming increasingly obvious over time, that all of this is totally insane. When I say insane, I mean the treatment of people who have gender dysphoria as though a surgical or hormonal mutilation is going to fix the problem. There's no evidence that this is the case. Okay, that is not going to overall change the rate of suicidal ideation, for example. The lie that you either trans your child or you have a dead child through suicide is not true. The data are not there to back it. At best, you can say it's experimental. That's the best you can say about this, the best. And the downside is that if you watchfully waited a small child, for example, 80% minimum are going to grow out of this. And as we, by the way, increase the number of kids who are experiencing gender confusion, that number would actually increase if you actually did watchful waiting, because a huge majority of the children, I would assume, who are now engaging in gender confusion are not actually suffering from long-lasting gender identity disorder or gender dysphoria. In any case, there's an actual article from the Daily Caller from Dr. Susan Bradley, Canadian psychiatrist and pioneer in child gender dysphoria treatment. She just came out against affirming children's transgender identities and putting them on puberty blockers. That was a practice she was once involved in. She said, we were wrong. They're not as irreversible as we always thought. They have longer-term effects on kids' growth and development, including making them sterile, and quite a number of things affecting their bone growth. But it doesn't matter. Joe Biden has an agenda, and the agenda is the total androgyny of human beings. And again, I love that he's using the same sort of argumentative model that was used for homosexuality in 1996, which is, the kids they're born this way. I'm sorry. Kids are not born transgender. That's not a thing. Kids are not born in the wrong body. Things are extremely turbulent right now. The stock market does not like turbulence. You need to diversify at least some of your assets into a thing that is not controlled by the federal government, precious metals. I've bought gold from Birch Gold before. In preparation for uncertain economic times, diversification is just a smart strategy. I'm not saying liquidate all your asset base and then sink it into gold bars or something, but you should diversify because that is indeed a smart strategy. Buy gold today, get a free safe to store it in as well. On qualifying purchases from Birch Gold Group now through March 31st, they'll ship a free safe directly to your door. Just text Ben to 989898. Get your free info kit on gold. Claim eligibility for your free safe. Then talk to one of their precious metals specialists. That's Ben to 989898 today. Again, you got to protect your assets. And those assets right now are at the disposal of the federal government. How about get some assets that aren't at the disposal of the federal government? This is the reason why gold has always been a hedge against inflation and uncertainty in the market, as well as government control of your asset base. Text Ben to 989898. Get all your questions answered from Birch Gold, and then invest at least a little bit of your money into precious metals with Birch Gold. In this economic climate, you may have noticed that you should actually be looking at your monthly expenses and figuring out what to cut. Right? It's time to get a little conservative with how you spend your cash. This is why you should be checking out Pure Talk. Pure Talk saves the average family over $900 a year when they switch from Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile. That is correct. You can save $900 a year on your wireless bill, still enjoy that ultra-fast 5G service. Get unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data for just $30 a month. Pure Talk is so sure you're going to love your service, they're backing it up with a 100% money-back guarantee. Stop paying a fortune to Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile. Cut your bill in half with Pure Talk. Their U.S.-based customer service team makes the switch really, really easy. Switch on over to Pure Talk in as little as 10 minutes while keeping your phone and your phone number. Your first month is guaranteed risk-free. I switched my coverage over to Pure Talk. It was quick. It was easy. The coverage is just as good as it was before, except I'm spending a lot less money. Go on over to puretalk.com, enter promo code Shapiro, save 50% off your very first month of coverage. That's puretalk.com, promo code Shapiro. Pure Talk is simply smarter wireless. Restrictions apply. See site for details. Again, go to puretalk.com, enter promo code Shapiro, save 50% off your very first month of coverage. puretalk.com, promo code Shapiro. This sort of weird Cartesian dualism in which the left engages about this stuff is wild. But again, this is part and parcel of Joe Biden's wild social leftism. He is not a moderate in any way, shape, or form. So Joe Biden, also in the same interview, decided to tell what is my favorite Joe Biden story. I love this story. This is the story where he explains that he first became in favor of gay marriage when he was, I kid you not, a senior in high school. Now, some of you may own a calendar. If you do, I wish you to turn back that calendar to the year 1959, because that's when Joe Biden was a senior in high school. Joe Biden was born in 1942. 1942. Like, we were still at war with Japan when this guy was born. And there were still 3 more years of that war to go when he was born, which means he was a senior in high school in 1959, 1960. Here's the story he tells about how he became in favor of marriage in 1959/1960, when literally no one was in favor of saying, he was just a forward thinker, which is why he spent the next 5 decades backing traditional marriage in the face of same-sex marriage. Literally 5 decades. He voted over and over and over in favor of things like the Defense of Marriage Act. He, in rhetoric, backed a constitutional amendment to protect traditional marriage. But don't worry, he is now retconning history. He's going back in time. 1959 is when he decided he was in favor of gay marriage. And he's going to tell my personal favorite Joe Biden story.
I can remember exactly where my epiphany was.
Okay.
I hadn't thought much about it, to tell you the truth. And I was a senior in high school, and my dad was dropping me
1959.
off. I remember about to get out of the car, and I looked to my right, and 2 well-dressed men in suits kissed each other. I mean, they gave each other a kiss.
Well, gave each other a kiss. My dad said, "Joey, that's what love looks like." And it's really happened. I was pulling over. I was junior in high school. My dad pulled over our DeLorean, and he said, "Joey, look at those 2 men in assless chaps banging it out. That's what love looks like, Joey." And that's when I decided I was in favor of gay marriage. And YMCA began to play from the sky. And that's when I decided gay marriage was the thing for me. The year was 1959. Yeah.
Okay, and if you believe that, I have a bridge in Brooklyn to tell you that is not a true story. He tells it all the time. That is not a true story. But he is a social radical, which, as always, raises the question, why would they run him? And as always, the answer is the same. Because the person who stands behind Joe Biden is, in fact, Kamala Harris. It's not Pete Buttigieg, right? Pete Buttigieg, that dude's political career is effectively over after blowing it in East Palestine, Ohio, after taking a 2-month paternity leave. Now, what the left is trying to do is say you're not allowed to joke about his paternity leave. I'm going to joke about his paternity leave. I am. I'm sorry. He took a 2-month paternity leave. As I've said before, paternity leave is usually constructed around the idea of you have a partner who has had a physical problem because she gave birth. As a father of 3, having watched my wife push babies out of her 3 times and soon to be a 4th time, I can tell you there will be, physical issues that arise from this. You know where physical issues do not arise? When you don't actually have to do that because you're a dude. Paternity leave came from the idea that you need to provide extra support to your partner because your partner has undergone a physical trauma. Pete Buttigieg took 2 months off, which means we get to joke about him. So the White House is very angry at Mike Pence for making a joke about this at the Gridiron Club dinner. Now, the Gridiron Club dinner is a comedy routine, and Mike Pence made a joke at a comedy routine. His joke was that Buttigieg took maternity leave after he and his husband adopted newborn twins. So he should have said paternity leave instead of maternity. He said, Pete is the only person in human history to have, and then he said, trains started going offline and planes started falling from the sky. He said, Pete is the only person in human history to have a child, and everyone else gets postpartum depression. That's called a joke. This prompted the White House to suggest that it was homophobic. Quote, this is Karine Jean-Pierre, world's most untalented press secretary. The former vice president's homophobic joke about Secretary Buttigieg was offensive and inappropriate, all the more so because he treated women suffering from postpartum depression as a punchline. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. How is he treating women? What did that have to do with women suffering from postpartum depression? Guys, it's called a joke. And I like when you guys pretend that jokes don't exist so that you can yell at people, but it's not really a thing. But again, the reason that Joe Biden continues to be the person they need on that wall is because the person backing him up is Kamala Harris. Alrighty, guys, the rest of the show is continuing right now. You're not going to want to miss it. We will be talking with Dave McCormick. He ran for Senate in Pennsylvania, narrowly lost. He has a brand new book out. If you're not a member, become a member. Use code Shapiro at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans. Click the link in the description and join us.